and thank you, all of you, for telling the story of what happens in this building to our communities. This year, this is the inaugural year of the Intersectional Equality Conference, and we are extremely grateful and proud to be organizing and advocating on behalf of all minority groups who are under attack from federal and state legislation. Democracy died yesterday in Missouri, and we are in a battle for the heart and soul of the heartland. The Republicans in the Senate, by using a procedural move known as a PQ or previous question, stopped the debate, successfully undoing what the people voted on just months ago in November. Missourians are fed up with the Mo GOP not listening to what they want for their bodies, their families, and their communities. The Democrats and the Intersectional Equality Conference will never stop fighting for your rights to abortion and access to gender-affirming care. HJR 73 is a dangerous bill for Missourians. It restores the full abortion ban and also will ban access to gender-affirming care for minors. That is the Missouri GOP's latest attempt to erase trans people from society. Trans people are not a threat to Missourians, but the Missouri GOP is. As a queer woman, I am speaking to Missourians like me who are mad, angry, scared. We know you're tired. Take a minute. Let the shock subside. And then let's do what we do. Show me. Show me, Missouri. Act up. Let's fight fascists. And with that, I'll go ahead and let my colleague, Representative Thomas, speak.
Hello, everyone. I'll be brief. I'm Wick Thomas. I'm the representative from Jackson, District 19. The Intersectional Equality Conference has proven itself a useful tool this year in the Missouri legislature, our first year. The legislature has continued to attack our communities, harming impoverished Missourians while simultaneously passing tax cuts for the rich. The legislature has been using trans Missourians as fodder to get what they want. The Intersectional Equality Conference and our allies have successfully defended the personal rights of Missourians on nearly 100 bills attacking marginalized people this year, and we are just getting started. The constant attacks on our communities are not polling as well as they used to. Missourians are waking up to the fact that the LGBT and immigrant communities are being used as scapegoats for bad policy decisions. Last night, I watched as Senate Republicans shut down our legislature and any chance of passing any more bills this year. The Senate Republicans shut down debate so they could ban abortion and take away paid sick time that has been earned by hardworking Missourians. Senate Republicans have taken our legislature hostage in order to overturn the will of the people. The Republican conference is using misleading ballot language to ban abortion, criminalize medical providers and parents, and take paid sick time away from hardworking Missourians. Missouri voters made it clear at the ballot box, we want paid sick time and worker protections. We want abortion access to be a private medical decision. Missouri already voted on these issues. The Republican supermajority shutting down the government to overturn voter-approved constitutional protections is a slap in the face to the people of Missouri and a mockery of the oath we took to the people of Missouri. We have filed a constitutional objection to HJR 73 as we believe both the process and the language of the resolution to be unconstitutional. This next year is going to be hard, but we will cut through the lies and make sure Missourians know exactly what they are voting on. We will educate the community and help in our citizen-led initiatives all across the state. We will protect workers, and we will protect pregnant people, and we will win. As this is our last press conference of the session, I'm excited to announce today that the Intersectional Equality Conference will be working with people from all over the state in every district to organize the first ever Missouri Pride at the Capitol event this summer. People in the LGBT community have been forced to come into this building over and over again to defend their right to live and love free from government interference. Many people see this building and the Missouri legislature as an imposing and tyrannical force in their lives, and it is time that we work to change that. Now we forge ahead toward a Missouri that truly upholds our core values. We move Missouri forward, and we invite all of the people who this legislature has harmed back into the people's house. We remind the legislature that this is the people's house. To any communities who have been harmed by the Missouri legislature, we welcome you back to your house. Welcome home. Salus Populi Suprema Lex Esto.
Excuse me. Afternoon. My name is Jeremy Dean, representative from the 132nd down in downtown Northwest Springfield. This has been one of the most difficult weeks, not just for me personally, but for the people standing behind me, people across the state, and especially for the constituents of the 132nd District. We came into this final week of session prepared to work, to do our jobs, to represent the people and finish strong. Instead, what we got was chaos, obstruction, and a complete breakdown of the democratic process. The Senate adjourned early, not because their work was done, but because the Republican supermajority decided to go nuclear. They chose to silence debate, to steamroll dissent, and to ignore the will of Missouri voters not once, but twice. They gutted the paid sick leave protections from Prop A, protections that Missourians voted for. Then, in an act of breathtaking cruelty, they advanced a deceptive ballot question that threatens to overturn Amendment 3, undoing our hard-fought process on reproductive freedoms and dragging us back into being one of the most restrictive states in the country for abortion and reproductive health care. Let me be clear. This is a direct attack on bodily autonomy, and it is a direct insult to the voters of Missouri. I'm outraged. And I know I'm not alone in that. I've heard from so many of you, my constituents, neighbors, organizers, and so many other people who feel betrayed, exhausted, and furious. And I share that frustration, and I carry it with me every day. And while I'm here talking about hypocrisy and political games, let's talk about what happened with House Bill 19. Republicans in the House killed House Bill 19, a bipartisan appropriations bill with over $500 million in funding for infrastructure, state services, mental health services, children's services, local economic development, and so much more. It included vital investments that communities across Missouri are depending on. And why did they kill it, you might ask? Because they were mad at the Senate for a procedural move. That's it. Then, not even a full day later, many of the same Republicans who claimed to oppose reckless spending turned right around and asked for a tax break for one of the wealthiest men in our state to build a luxury sports stadium. They weren't negotiating in good faith. They weren't prioritizing Missouri families. They were just playing a game using hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of jobs as their poker chip. This is not leadership. It's legislative sabotage. And the people of Springfield and the people across the state of Missouri are the ones paying the price for it. And it doesn't stop there. I also want to speak about a few local issues that have been weighing heavily on many of the residents in the 132nd and across the city of Springfield. One of those issues is the city's recent ordinance allowing vehicles to be towed if their tags are more than 30 days expired. Yeah, it's resulted in more people renewing their tags, but let's talk about the real cost. This ordinance is putting unnecessary pressure on working families. For many, it's not just a matter of forgetting, it's about affordability, access, and time. The financial burden of these fines and towing fees can be devastating for somebody that's living paycheck to paycheck, which are most of the people in my district. And to make matters worse, our DMV offices in Springfield are only open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m., hours that don't work for the very people that this policy affects the most. Today, we learned that the state of Missouri is closing one of our DMV locations in South Springfield, which is another hit to access, another barrier to working people that are just trying to stay in compliance and avoid losing their only means of transportation. If we're going to create ordinances with real-life consequences, then we must also ensure that our system supports the people meeting those expectations. Right now, we're not doing that. And I will continue pushing for practical solutions that put working people first, not policies that punish them for just trying to get by. Yesterday, we also learned that the city of Springfield selected a new city manager. I want to be clear that I hope to see moving forward a commitment to equity, to transparency, and to ensure that all communities, especially those that have been historically marginalized, have a seat at the table. Our city deserves leadership that listens and engages and builds trust across every neighborhood, from the north side to the south side. I'm ready to work with our new city manager, and I will be watching closely to make sure that the needs of our most vulnerable residents are not just heard, but prioritized. Yesterday, a beloved small business on historic C Street, the heart of my district, Springfield's only Cuban restaurant, closed its doors. It was operated by legal Cuban immigrants working on legal visas. Their visas were revoked, not because they did anything wrong, but because of inhumane anti-immigrant policies coming out of Washington, D.C. And I have to ask, Congressman Eric Burleson, where are you? But the answer is obvious. You're too busy fighting the ATF, searching for UFOs and hanging out at Mar-a-Lago to care about what's actually happening in your district. These federal policies are destroying small businesses. They are tearing apart communities, and they are dismantling livelihoods. And yet somehow, some, especially in this building, still have the audacity to claim that Proposition A is what is hurting businesses. No, that's not what's hurting businesses. Before I close, I want to address something that deserves to be called out clearly and publicly. Representative Jamie Gragg's annual attack on Ozarks Pride Fest. Every year, Representative Gragg pulls the same stunt, using LGBTQ+ Missourians as a political punching bag to score cheap right-wing points. And this week he did it again, criticizing Pride Fest in Springfield, not out of genuine concern, but to fan the flames of division and fear. It's disgusting, it's hypocritical, it's tired, and it's downright careless. In fact, he dusted off a press release from just a few years ago like nobody would even notice. Pride Fest is about community, visibility, and love. It's about standing with those who have been marginalized in silence. And if Representative Gragg is truly worried about protecting children, maybe he should have stayed in the House chamber on the vote that ended child marriage in our state instead of walking out because he just couldn't bear to support a bill that actually would have protected Missouri children. You cannot claim to be a defender of children while refusing to defend them. You can't preach morality while using hate and fear as campaign tools. And you sure as hell can't say that you represent all Missourians while vilifying an entire community just for existing. I won't stand for it, the people behind me won't stand for it, and the people I represent will not stand for it. I am fed up with the disregard for people's lives, fed up with the lies, and I'm tired of politics being treated like a game of Monopoly, where the supermajority and the wealthy of this state keep passing go and cashing in while the rest of us are getting evicted from the board. But here's what we can do, and here's what we will do. We will fight. I have never been more energized in this building than I am right now. And if the Republican supermajority wants to ignore the will of the voters and betray the people of Missouri, then they just dug their own grave. We are coming for every seat that sold out their constituents this session. We are organizing, we are mobilizing, and we are not backing down. Missouri deserves better, and I will not stop fighting until we are better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Kim Smith. I represent District 68, which is a suburb of St. Louis in Florissant, Missouri. I wanted to just speak really quickly on the idea of intersectionality and appearing as a person who has multiple intersections. I am, and I identify as a Black female, which automatically puts me in the minority. But it's important to point that out because in my community, 92% of the people who have voted and do vote Democrat are Black females. So one of my goals here is to continue to represent my community, whether it be through education, whether it be through how we develop our economics in our community, and whether it be through just giving us a voice. Here's the problem, and this is what I see. From day one, I would say the first week, we've been under attack. There's this idea that Democrats are angry, but diversity, equity, and inclusion was the first thing on the chopping block, which means you took away the voices of our community. And so as we stand here today, we have been fighting this entire session to ensure that the needs of our community are met. And we will continue to do that because the people who we represent sent us here to support and be the voice for every intersection that is available. And what I'm finding, and this is my first session, is that there are people who are speaking from a place of privilege. And they want to continue to ensure that we are not heard. But we are here to be heard, and we are representing the people who we will represent. And if that means we have to stand on the floor until our feet hurt and our backs hurt, we will talk about how wrong it is to tell a private school what bathrooms they should have. We will talk about how wrong it is to not fund the public schools, which are already underfunded. We will point out those issues that continue to be brought up on the floor that are there to minimize and erase the people who we care about the most. I just wanted to say that I am here. I stand with the MLBC. I stand with the Intersectionality Caucus and Conference, and I also stand with my Democratic members.
I think that's all, unless you have questions.
Yes. My main question, obviously, and we talked about this in the Democratic cluster, was that the kind of the largest, very targeted attack on trans folks, trans youth, and trans athletes did not pass this year. Kind of one vote away that it wasn't brought up in the House. I guess thoughts on that it not passing, but that it's likely to be brought up again as the sunset is set to go off in 2027.
And the question is why?
I guess thoughts on
No thoughts.
not passing and the fact that of having to face it again likely next year.
Sure. I just wanted to, before I turn it over to you, Representative Thomas, I just wanted to say thanks to, so on that note, I also believe it was a lot of Democratic leadership on the House side that after things happened yesterday, really advocated to leadership, Republican leadership in the House and said, can we not, please? And so I believe it is a lot of the relationships that our House leadership had that was able to perhaps stop the bill from coming up today. Doesn't mean we're not going to see it, but maybe after what happened yesterday, they were like, maybe we'll give them one, huh? Maybe? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. HJR 73 passing is a horrible thing, but what they did by unconstitutionally adding more than one subject into that ballot language, by throwing trans children under the bus, what they did was they gave us a year at least to organize, to educate Missourians, and to point out that it is not the Democrats who are constantly bringing up this issue. It is the Republicans who are constantly bringing up this issue, and we are trying to protect the Missourians who are at most risk of harm by this legislation. And so I see this as an opportunity for us to organize for the next year and to reach out to people who maybe we wouldn't have if they hadn't given us this opportunity.
This is a very technical question, but the right now the sunset is set to expire in 2027. Right now, any claims that's saying that barring transgender youth from accessing gender-affirming care and/or banning athletes participating on teams they identify with is in state statute, so it's kind of a redundancy, like it's already there. Do you think there's a possibility of weaponizing the fact that if the sunset were to go away, that they didn't bring it up this year, that they didn't finalize it, that they kind of have that point to use as far as the HJR? It's very
right.
like baseball and golf, but
I hear it. I think the thing is, I'll give it to Lily or Representative Fuchs after this, but I think the thing on this is they were always going to bring it up again next year. They use this every year. They have introduced this legislation every year for 6 years at least, all of this anti-trans legislation, specifically so they can get other things that they want. They use it as ballot candy on almost everything. And so they were going to bring it up again next year, if not in this form, in some other form. They're going to bring it up every year because it's the only way that they can get their bad policies passed. What they've done for us, though, is they've given us an opportunity to organize around this issue and make sure that that's not going to work in the future, because they have introduced this legislation every year for years. But next year, we're going to be ready.
I have one more kind of on that note for section 2. When is the Capitol Pride Fest going to happen? That's a lighter softball.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay. And then my other question is, there's been, obviously, the anti-trans legislation has kind of gotten legs every year. A couple years ago, there was a pretty big hearing on a drag ban. I didn't really see. Correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see a long kind of drawn out hearing of that. Do you feel like interest is waning on some of these LGBTQ issues as matters of from Republicans really just narrowing on this one issue instead? And kind of just why?
Quick. Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen recently Republican governors vetoing anti-trans legislation and anti-LGBT legislation. Like I said earlier, it is not polling as well as it used to attack marginalized communities. And we are going to make sure that we are moving Missouri into the future, because I grew up in rural Missouri, and the Missouri I grew up in was a kind place, and a place that people would be willing to at least listen to you. And we're going to talk to those people. We're going to make sure that hearts and minds change on this issue, and we're not going to let them attack people just to get bad policies passed anymore. And then Representative Boyko would like to speak on the...
Yeah, on the prior on SB 10, this is Mark Boyko. I represent District 90 in St. Louis County. But actually, I'm going to speak about, you mentioned the delay of a year, and will we see this again? I think the answer is yes to that, but also this gives us another year to communicate with the people of Missouri. And I think that when we do that, while I represent St. Louis County, I'll talk about in the Boot Heel, right? In Caruthersville, 1 in 3 children, their families don't have enough money to feed them consistently, right? The life expectancy down there is lower than it is in 80% of the countries of the world, including countries like Rwanda, all right? And we just will be communicating with those people over the next year that none of that is the fault of people seeking gender-affirming care without government interference, right? And they need to see that it's the Republican policies, and what we saw this week was Republicans actually withholding a $1.2 million investment in the one hospital in Caruthersville so that they could undermine the will of the people on these 2 votes. And so we're going to do an even better job of communicating that to the people across the state.
Yeah, I have a couple questions related to immigration, so whoever can answer those. Last month, there was a 27-year-old St. Louis man from Colombia that appears to have taken his life while in federal custody at the Phelps County Jail in Rolla. One of the big issues his family spoke about was the black box of information from both officials locally at the municipality there and then the federal government. I'm curious if this caucus, or maybe the Democrats at large, have anything in mind in terms of oversight or kind of what your plans are around immigration as more and more of these rural Missouri counties are signing contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and really see those contracts as a financial lifeline for their communities.
Yeah, I spoke a little bit about this on the floor today. All in all, it's been a pretty shameful session when you consider the lack of movement we saw from the majority party on anything having to do with immigration. There's a lot the states can do on immigration, and time again they've decided to not only not have the conversation, but to silence anyone who wants to talk about actual solutions to immigration. It's pretty heartbreaking for so many families across the entire state who are frankly just scared. And I know I speak for myself, my entire caucus. We're all for a safe border and deporting felons, but not families. We just want a safer Missouri where folks feel safe here. And it's inappropriate to use state resources for Donald Trump's horrific and awful immigration agenda. Thank you.
Just want to add to that, due process is a requirement by the Constitution.